Wake up. It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 142, Death to Daylight Saving Time, for clock back move and make it for a while. Welcome everyone to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Chris Winter. I'm a neurologist, sleep specialist, and your host for this episode of the podcast, which I'm not entirely excited to be doing. I really wish that this topic didn't exist so I don't have to do the podcast, but I feel like it has to be done. So we're going to do a podcast advocating for the death of daylight saving time. So if you want to follow me, talk to me about your feelings about daylight saving time and the push to get rid of it in favor of permanent standard time, let me know. Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter. We have a YouTube page where we post all the video content of our show. And if you're looking at the video right now, you can see behind me, it doesn't look like the typical place where I'm recording because it's not. We are at the Cleveland Guardians Goodyear, Arizona Spring Training Complex. This is my 11th season with the Guardians, and it just so happened that I needed to be here recording the podcast. And so here we go. Before we also get going, quick reminder, next week, episode 143 will be the first annual Sleep Unplugged pillow fight, pitting 17 pillows against each other in a March Madness style tournament. Print out your bracket from my Instagram page, fill it out. Who do you think's going to win? Send it to me. The winner, the person who sends me the bracket that is the closest to what actually happens, will win a wonderful prize. And we'll just give a quick thanks to the pillows that are going to be participating. Bed Gear, Twyla, Authenticity 50, Lagoon, Dozy Boy, Pluto, Silk and Snow, Tempur-Pedic, Casper, Layla, Mummy, Cariloa, Nest, Luxome, Cube, Atlux, and Pillow Cube. That's Coop, Atlux and Pillow Cube. Also, a big thanks to Side Sleeper Z for sponsoring the episode, as well as Layla for sending, Lunya, sorry, for sending me pillowcases so I can test them out in a uniform fashion. Really excited about that podcast. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to be talking a lot about the importance of light in this episode, and that pairs really nicely with this week's sponsor, AO. AO is the UV and infrared-free wearable light therapy device that delivers short but impactful blue light sessions that make it easy to get properly timed light to optimize your sleep and circadian health. If you're watching the YouTube video, I just put it on. It's that easy to wake up, throw on AO's gentle blue light, which enters your eyes and stimulates your brain in your retina that influences your brain's master clock. The reason I have it here with me in spring training is I always tell players about it. I think this is a wonderful way to adjust your circadian rhythm, get more adjusted when you're dealing with jet lag. I think if you're a pitcher sitting out in the outfield in the bullpen and you get the call to start warming up at 9:45 at night, slip back into the behind the stadium, put your AO on, and let it wake you up before you start throwing. We talk about this all the time. This can mean, AO can mean not only better sleep, but also mood improvement, health improvement. You can use it in conjunction with the AO app for a totally customized experience. So I want you to go to goao.com, get your personal light device, use the discount code Sleep Unplugged for a 20% discount. And if the save standard time movement that we're talking about on this episode fails, everyone needs to snag one because we're not going to have enough morning light to go around. So the lyric from this week's title, if you're a listener to the podcast, we take a lyric from a song and put it into the title. The lyric, and it's an awkward one, for clock back move and make it for a while, comes from The Cure and their song Taking off their 2004 album The Cure, which is really it's a really good album. It's a little dark, but it has some really bright moments on it. So if you're a Cure fan and you missed this album, you should check it out. Taking Off is a song that kind of sounds like In Between Days. Maybe could have come off of the album Wish, has that kind of strummy guitar that I really like. Huge Cure fan, was a huge fan of the 1989 album Disintegration, which almost didn't even get made because Elektra thought it was willfully obscure. Fortunately, it didn't happen. Of course, The Cure is Robert Smith. Lowell Tolhurst, who actually named the band, was their original drummer. It was originally called Easy Cure because of a song that he wrote called Easy Cure. Eventually, as they had lineup changes, they just dropped Easy and became The Cure. Uh, Big fan. One of my favorite Cure stories was in '81. They were playing a festival, and after the Cure played, Robert Palmer was going to come on and do his set. And the organizers of the tour in '81 said, "Look, you need to cut your set short because we got Robert Palmer coming up afterwards." And they were not enthusiastic about Robert Palmer, Addicted to Love, the kind of the buttoned up crooner. You can imagine how he sat in conjunction in contrast to the Cure. So they actually played the song A Forest and made it really long. So it goes on and on and on. You can see it if you look up 1981 Cure, Robert Palmer. There's a video of it on YouTube. And at the very end, when they finally wrap up the show, um, their their guitarist, yells out to the crowd, "F Robert Palmer and F rock and roll," and then walked off. And it was, really, really great moment. Um, anyway, so we'll put The Cure's Taking Off on the Spotify Music Playlist, Volume 3. And again, the lyric is perfect because when we go from daylight saving time back to standard time, the clocks go back. So for clock back move and make it for a while, I think Robert Smith was basically saying move the clocks back and leave it there for a while or forever, which I could not agree with more. Really quick shout out to Dr. Olivia Walsh, who's a researcher at the University of Michigan Department of Neurology, CEO of Archoscope. She just sent me her new book called Sleep Groove: Why Your Body's Clock is So Messed Up and What to Do About It. I'm a big fan of this book because I'm a big fan of circadian rhythms. And I think everybody, including all the lawmakers who are making these, putting these bills up to adopt permanent daylight saving time, need to read Dr. Walsh's book. But I'm also a big fan because I'm a believer that there's all kind of subtle references in music that sort of pay homage to other artists. When you're a fan of an artist, you might put a little lyric in there. We were talking about Def Leppard putting lyrics in there that were reminiscent of Neil Young. I can't help but think that Sleep Groove, Why Your Body's Clock is So Messed Up and What to Do About It, is not a subtle homage to my first book, The Sleep Solution: Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It. I'm sure that's not the case. A really cool thing about Dr. Walsh, she came up with a cartoon called Imogen Quest. It's a little web comic, and it won America's Next Great Cartoonist Prize from the Washington Post. Check it out. It's really sweet. There's a really funny one about why does the most embarrassing part of your laundry always seem to fall? Really, really, really good stuff. So, Dr. Walsh, front runner for the 2025 Sleep Unplugged Book of the Year already, and we're just in March. So, let's get into it. So we have sprung forward once again, lost an hour, and so daylight saving time begins. And I'm going to be honest with you, it really, really needs to stop. Listen, if for no other reason than me compulsively responding to every lawmaker who puts the same text tweet up. It's this kind of goofy picture of them smiling like they have cured cancer and telling you how great it's going to be when they make permanent daylight saving time, support their initiative. And I feel a special responsibility because a lot of the people who are doing this and putting the information out come from the state in which I currently reside, and that is Florida. Republican Senator Marco Rubio introduced the Sunshine Protection Act, which just makes my skin crawl when I Sunshine Protection Act. Then Florida Republican Vern Buchanan has recently introduced a measure to make daylight saving time permanent within the whole country. And so it's just an endless stream of Rick Scott, who's our Florida senator, and the most recent one that I saw was Senator Ashley Moody, who is somebody within the Ashley Moody office is really good at Canva because her tweet came with a little post that said Ashley Moody, U.S. Senator for Florida, and it has the Sunshine Protection Act in really cool fonts and great colors. And she wrote, "Why lock the clock? It's good for your health. It's good for a strong economy. It's good for the country." And a lot of the things that she talks about on here are simply not true. And we'll go through uh, the good Senator Moody's poster, Canva poster, in good time. Before we get going, I just want you to understand this is not just me, some rando sleep doctor with a podcast who likes to talk about The Cure and Def Leppard and Neil Young. It's a lot of people, and not just a lot of people, a lot of smart people, really smart people. So if you're somebody who distrusts anything related to science and measuring and research, this podcast is not for you. You can turn it off now. But again, I just want to throw out there American Academy of Sleep Medicine, National Sleep Foundation, American College of Chest Physicians, National Safety Council, American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, the Canadian Sleep Society, World Sleep Society, Society for Research on Biological Rhythms, a bunch of state sleep societies. It's not just sleep research, it's people who care about education and children, the National PTA, National Education Association, American Federation for Teachers, National School Boards Association, and the group that we talked about a long time ago in one of our podcast episodes, Start School Later. They all cite both the health benefits of circadian alignment and the safety advantage regarding it, which brings me to the first thing on Senator Ashley Moody's poster that I think is incorrect, which is reducing car accidents and reducing risk of seasonal depression, cardiac issues, and stroke. No, 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 no. That is not true. Actually, it's the permanent standard time that does those things. And it's, listen, I approach every subject, every topic I do on this podcast with the opposite approach. Maybe all those organizations that I wrote are wrong. I'm going to look around for research supporting permanent daylight saving time. You know what I found? I found two things. The first is money. I suspect that if you own a restaurant with outdoor seating, you might have a stake in terms of making permanent daylight saving time the standard. Now, you can pick that argument apart very easily, but I will concede that maybe there is an economic driver here that doesn't care about health and education and safety and suicide rates. It just wants people around to buy grills and come to my restaurant and utilize my outdoor facility. Listen, I'll concede that. That's fine. I also found one article that talked about daylight saving time perhaps reducing pedestrian accidents by about 174 per year. So pedestrian accident, maybe, but I think that's going to be massively counterbalanced by other forms of death, if that makes sense. So, of the one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine things on this Canva poster of Senator Moody, I think we can take away two of them, the car accidents and the seasonal depression, cardiac issues, and stroke. That is not true. The other thing that I found is that a lot of times people confuse ending the change with there being an inherent advantage over standard time, daylight saving over standard time, meaning that, sure, if we adopt permanent daylight saving time, we do end the change twice a year. But keep in mind, when we adopt permanent daylight saving time, a time that is at odds with our natural body's rhythm. And I would also, point out that the a lot of researchers, myself included, would say, look, if you're going to give me a choice between permanent standard time, permanent daylight saving time, and then keeping things the way they are right now, here's my rank. Number one, permanent standard time. Number two, keep things the way they are right now, because at least part of the time we're on the right time, right? And then number three, or last place, is permanent daylight saving time. So, keep that in mind. So, again, why do we care? Number one, and it's a big one, better circadian rhythms. Sure, the sunrise, happens early, but you can sleep through that, when it's happening during the year, when the sun's coming up well before you wake up, buy some blinds, buy a sleep mask. And there's great ones. Side Sleeper Z is sponsoring our episode next week. Check them out. It's a mask that'll stay on your face and not move around. Buy a Z-Den, our previous sponsor, and stick your head in it, and you can have darkness 24 hours if you want it. There are ways we can control that. And when you look around, Arizona, where I am right now, doesn't doesn't follow daylight saving time. You don't want to know why? Because Arizona is hot, and people enjoy having time in the morning when it's not so hot and the sun is up. So there are advantages here both ways. We like to start our day with light. That is what we are intended to do. I tell people all the time, when you wake up, I need you to go from a dark bedroom to a light environment. I need you to go from fasted to being fed. I need you to go from cool to warm, socially isolated to socially interactive. All these things set the stage for a well-oiled circadian rhythm. That's why I tell people, put this AO on the bedside table. When you wake up and it's dark outside, you pop them on, and it's telling your body, oh, light, must be the morning, must be time to get going. And that can really help you adopt that more favorable circadian rhythm and function better during the day. What does the circadian rhythm govern? Just about everything our bodies do. It is not simply related to sleep. It's the timing of our body. Nothing could be more important than that. Remember, we were talking about sleep and cancer and how shift work could be a carcinogen? Why is that? It's the timing of light and our body's activities through a 24-hour period. And it's at odds with what it should be. That's why I did a whole series of interviews in Canada about daylight saving time. And so I said, well, explain to me why it's a problem. So let's take standard time, which has been described as being God's time because it's most honest to our natural clock and really balances morning and evening light the best. So if that's God's time or God's clock, I'm going to propose something I've never heard before. I'm going to make it up right now. It's called the devil's time, right? The devil's time is the worst case scenario, the opposite of that. So we'll call the devil's time taking the darkest time of the night, which should be midnight, but we're going to make that noon. So we're not just going to move things 1 hour. We're going to move them 12. We're literally going to flip-flop day and night and call the darkest part of the night noon. We could do that. This is all completely arbitrary. Senator Ashley Moody, she's a lawyer. She can figure it out. She tried to invalidate elections and she's trying to get voter rights taken away. She's got all kinds of ideas of things she can do. So I don't think it's going to be that difficult for her if she wanted to adopt devil's time. Now, you're thinking to yourself, ooh, devil's time sounds really bad because I'm eating lunch, my kid's eating lunch on the playground outside, and it's pitch black outside. And they're going to come home and do some homework. And around 6 p.m., when we're having dinner and kind of getting things wound down to go to bed, the sun's going to start coming up. That is a time that is very disruptive, right? We're trying to create a situation that is very unnatural. So while daylight saving time is not devil's time, it's an hour towards it, right? So 1 hour towards devil's time, not great. 2 hours towards it, ooh, even worse. 3 hours, this is not great. Four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we've arrived, right? Every step we take towards that theoretical awful situation is going to come with all kinds of problems. So, what this research is basically saying is as we move towards these unnatural states, there are consequences. Here's another one: school performance. Indiana kids in a study where part of the group was on permanent standard time, the other group was observing the switch, actually did better on their SATs when they were on permanent standard time. Mental health. This is a big one, and particularly in kids going to school. Going to school in the dark and having the sun come up, in some cases at 9 o'clock, is not good for a kid's circadian rhythm. Schools already start early. Remember, we were just talking about, school start times. Creating this situation where you're having kids wake up in the dark, eat breakfast in the dark, stand out to get the school bus in the dark, ride to school in the dark, and in many cases, heading off to first, maybe even second period, still pretty dark, is not good for their mood. It's not good for their learning. And we know that there's a very high rate of increased suicides because of the way the clock is set up right now. And we can fix that. We can change that. Um, anyway, the next thing is the environment. There is a lot of research that basically says daylight saving time increases morning heating, evening driving, and evening residential air conditioning, which in turn increases energy consumption and pollution. This was from a 2008 study in the National Bureau of Economic Research. So, um, again, Ashley Moody in her poster says boost economic activity. I'll give her that, maybe. I mean, I don't see a lot of research one way or the other about, if we're talking about businesses, sure. Maybe your outdoor seating area is more busy during daylight saving time than not. Whatever. But in terms of energy, reducing energy usage, no, that is not true. Um, and if we really want to get into boost economic activity, let's look beyond the small business that I'm talking about and really zoom out. Poor sleep. Now, this is just poor sleep in general. Poor sleep among workers is costing the United States about $411 billion annually, according to RAND Europe. This figure, which equates to about 1.23 million workdays lost due to insufficient sleep, ranks the United States first in terms of economic losses due to insufficient sleep. Number one, baby, US, number one. Deal with it, world. We're on top, and you're not taking away the title because we are number one. This is not where we want to be number one. This is not great. Now, it's important to understand that daylight saving time does not account for $411 billion of annual, lost working cost. But it's a contributor for sure. Anything that's affecting the sleep of a population is going to affect productivity. So I'm going to push back on Senator Moody's boost economic activity. Maybe in the neighborhood. Hey, I've noticed that during daylight saving time, more people come to my shop and buy ice cream and go outside and play on this playground equipment outside of my little ice cream shop. Sure, maybe. But I think if you zoom out to a bigger economic situation, and isn't that what we're trying to do now is really try to, cut the waste and really try to, enhance our economic standing right now. I don't think keeping daylight saving time is the way to do it. And the thing of it is we already have two states, Hawaii and Arizona, that in large part don't recognize daylight saving time. So even within our country, it's kind of confusing that some places do and some places don't. Like here in Arizona, it doesn't, but everywhere around me, it's happened. And when you look at the world, look up, just type into a Google search sometime what other countries follow daylight saving time. there are a lot of places around the world that have never utilized daylight saving time, and a lot of places in the world that did, but figured out this is not working and have gone back to permanent standard time. We are really among the last that are real that follow this. So, yeah, and the last thing I'll mention real quick is that we've tried this before. Nixon did it in 74 with the big OPEC and oil crisis, and it didn't last a year. It had massive public support. It got initiated, and people hated it. It, like I said, it failed within a year. Um, uh, uh, Increased deaths and injuries. America's, they tried it out and just got rid of it almost immediately. So it just is it's not great. So I want you to think about this. Oh, so let's go through here real quick. Strong bipartisan support. I don't think so. I think what it has is there is strong bipartisan support to end the change. I do not believe that there's strong bipartisan support, especially if people look at the research for keeping permanent daylight saving time. I think what Senator Moody is saying is there's a lot of support to end it. I hope so. But I think if anybody reads and looks at any research, it's overwhelmingly in support of permanent standard time. So more daylight after work, not necessarily true in a lot of places. Reduces car accidents? No. Reduces risk of seasonal depression, cardiac issues, and stroke? Absolutely not. Boosts economic activity? Maybe. This is a weaker point, but again, if we zoom out and look at the country as a whole, I think we will be economically much more prosperous by doing something that improves productivity, mood, and health. Reduces energy usage? No. Lowers numbers of robberies? I couldn't find any evidence of that. I looked for that, but I don't know what she's referring to. Um, I don't quite get I don't really get that. Um, so if anybody has some great research about the lowering the number of robberies, I couldn't find anything about that and don't really get that. Maybe it's because it boosts people's energy and boosts people's mood, and people who were sort of too kind of tired, lethargic, depressed to rob, with daylight saving time now have the energy to carry out their caper. I don't mean to make light of robberies, but I don't think this is a great reason to keep permanent daylight saving time, even if it is real. I'm guessing that's a pretty small number. Strong bipartisan support? I don't think so, but I do think there's strong support to get back to a one no clock change. Backed by farmers is really interesting because farmers don't really like daylight saving time. They were opposed to it when it was first kind of rolled out. Farmers were really against it back in what was it 1919 or something like that. So it deprives workers, construction workers, farmers of morning light, which they want. So I don't believe it's backed by farmers. Maybe Senator Moody found a couple farmers who were like, yeah, yeah, sure, we'll go along with it. But I think the majority of farmers, when shown what this means for their work, would most likely support permanent standard time. And finally, majority of Americans want to end the biannual clock change. I could not agree with that more, but we need to end it with permanent standard time. Couple places to look at. I want you to go to savestandardtime.com. I am proud to have signed as a sleep specialist and sleep expert their petition to help make permanent standard time the standard and end the clock change. But there's all kinds of interesting research on that page. It's all well documented and cited. Please check it out. Give them a follow, give them a like. They also have great information for how you can contact your senator, your representative, and say to them, look, this is not something that I support. I want permanent standard time because I believe in science. And hopefully, our voices will get loud enough to make this a reality. There's some amazing sleep specialists. We've talked about Karin Johnson before on this podcast that are up there in Washington. Michael Grandner, I think, was up there recently. They're up there in Washington and they're basically trying to tell these senators and representatives, look, let's settle this the way that science would indicate that we should and end daylight saving time for good. So let's make it a reality. Do your research. Let me know what you think. Dr. Chris Winter Twitter, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram. Tune in next week for the Sleep Unplugged pillow fight. One big final special thank you to AO. Let's put the glasses on one more time. Really appreciate your support of this episode. Check out goao.com. And until next week, sleep well.